All right, the last and final segment of our Renegades Racing Brand video is just going to be some miscellaneous items that we are going to talk about. I think the first thing we should start with is the Race Saver 305 that is allowed in our wing program. Just generally, because we're going to have a podcast on the dyno session we had.
Podcast will be starting
when?
Very soon.
Okay, after the election?
Well, I don't know when we're releasing all of this. So
okay.
No, and specifically for the podcast, that's the reason there has not been a podcast is because we didn't want it to turn into the political, all of the things that we all dealt with this whole summer.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about. It's an escape, and it will be again starting right after the election.
So I've been asked a lot, fairly, that what are we going to do with the 305? And bluntly, we don't need to do anything with the 305. We had a dyno session this past week. We'll talk about that more again on the podcast, the Renegades Racing podcast. And we just don't see an advantage out there. We don't see it. We'll give you horsepower numbers and torque numbers during the podcast. And we see some really darn good racing out there. We see the 305 winning. We see the LS winning. We saw the short block Chevy with a 4-barrel running up front with a team. And so as of right now, really as far as the engine goes for the wing program for 2021, we are not going to be making any changes. Our goal is after the 2022 season is to freeze our rules, just like we have done with the traditionals. But we feel we need a couple of seasons yet to take a look at some things, and that takes some time. And so again, as far as the Race Saver 305, there are going to be no changes to that.
Well, along with wings, the Northern Renegades will be having several wing shows this year. We don't have them specific dates or anything, but keep an eye out for that as we get our wing program off the ground. We're excited.
And your rule will be exactly what our rules are.
Well, I mean, yes, absolutely. no, they will be. No, this wing class is just like the traditional class, where you will be able to go series to series under the Renegade banner.
Yep.
And you will be legal at all of those racetracks.
Correct. And again, talking about sprint cars, as we are doing here, we are starting a new program in 2022.
We're hoping to. We're gathering the research, and the premise is to have this new program, a new class of car brought out for the 2022 season.
And we're going to take the 2021 season to test it. It's going to be a new 4-cylinder sprint car that I don't believe anybody else is doing in the world. I don't know. I don't think so.
That we know of.
But it's going to be for ages 13 and up. It's going to be the gap between where go-karts are right now and quarter midgets are. If there's somebody who's 13 or 14 years old and you feel you want to move up and you're ready to move up, this 4-cylinder sprint car will fill that gap between the go-kart and our current brand. And we're excited about it. We've already had some interest in a home track for this program. And again, we're going to develop it. Kaylee is the one doing most of the engine work on it. Can you tell everybody what engine that we're going to use? And there's only going to be one choice.
As of right now, yeah. They're the 2300 Ford 4-cylinder that is common to like the Mod 4 class or the Pro 4. It won't be that specific arrangement, but that base motor. Common to mini stocks. A lot of my son actually has a mini stock now with that it will be one of the test motors probably. But basically, it's readily available. It's been raced for years. Fortunately, some of the series or some of the parts that these motors will come from, they don't use the most common parts. We are going to try and limit the RPM to limit the spending. I know if you're interested in this, or even if you're in opposition to this, you've got a ton of questions or a ton of things you want to point out. And I want you to know right now that this isn't like a whim. Like we didn't say, hey, let's do this. This is a gaping hole that we're trying to fill. The midgets obviously should be that, but so should the 305. It's just a hole that has been corrupted for whatever reason. Midgets are really expensive. Mini sprints can be really expensive, and guys, have that perception. So we're not trying to get rid of anybody else, but we feel like we have a group of young men and women that need a place to develop their skills in a little bit less strenuous environment, as a V8 sprint car. Some of the other things that are interesting to note. We're working on some things to not cover the wheels, but to make these cars, you can make a little bit of a mistake and not have such a dramatic, result, the consequence for that. So they're not going to look exactly like everything else. And we also don't want the A mod, B mod problem. Right?
Yep, exactly.
So we want them to be distinguished, but part of the reason we can do this is because the series have grown and are garnering enough attention. We don't want to bring 10 more classes to every racetrack, but there are going to be a lot of sprint car specials coming up. I mean, and so we feel like with the home track, and we can effectively give these people a place to race and develop their skills. So it's not such a tall order to jump into a full blown sprint car and they can stair climb their way up without a lot of expense, because if this car works out the way we feel, you should be able to take out the 4-cylinder, hopefully sell that right to somebody else. The motor will be good for many, many years.
Change the tires, because we're looking into some different tires.
Change the back tires, I think, is where we're going to end up with the different set of rear tires. But basically, you're almost ready to go, traditional sprint car racing or bolt a wing on it. It's that's why we have a lot of development to do. But we're very excited to try it out. We're not guaranteeing that it's going to work, but man, we sure want to try and fill this void. So.
And again, give us 2021 to test it. If you have questions, I'm sure they'll come up throughout 2021. Please ask them. We already have interest just from the few little posts we put on Facebook for it. So we're looking forward to that. We've announced that we're going to have 2 traditional series next year. The Pertec UMSS will. The current one we have right now is going to be the Diamond Series, and the one we are creating is going to be the Gold Series. And again, if you haven't seen the posts out on Facebook, the Gold Series is going to be reserved for teams that have not won a feature, rookies, or second year into it, third year into it, and you're still learning. 14 to 16 cars for that night. We want these teams to be able to learn not only how to race the car, but to be safe, and we feel this is a great environment to do that. We've already got 3 shows for next year for 2021 for the Gold Series, and our goal for 2022 is to start a 3rd series, which is going to be more of an all-star series for the teams that do have won feature events and have done very well. And so that'll be something that'll be developed during 2021, and we still have quite a bit of work to do on that one also.
Well, and I was going to point out the big thing. We know we have a lot of really good teams, really competitive teams that maybe feel a little left out because it seems like we're focusing on new drivers and developing and whatever. And we certainly are. We're following the demand of the industry. Yep. That having a traveling, more expensive sprint car show is something that's really tough right now. And it's gaining, but we need a place for these drivers to develop, to become and be competitive with those teams already. So that's the niche that this is filling. The second part of that, though, for you teams out there that are already really competitive, there is some super cool stuff that I don't think that I should mention right now, but some really well-known players in the industry have been in our ears and really want to do some stuff that's gonna just blow your mind. It's gonna be really fun. There'll be some incentive behind it. The fans that we think are going to really get behind it. So that stuff is coming. All of this is a process. So, what in my opinion, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but is you want these average people to be able to live out their dreams, right? So they can start with, basically, very little mechanical background and work their way through, whether it's through the 4-cylinder or whatever, through up and become one of these top teams, right? Where most racing has this big divide where you have to it costs money and a lot of time, and it's something that most families probably can't afford to do to get to that point, right? Yeah. So they end up dropping off, and then we lose them, right? And they lose their dreams. So
let's face it, if you want to go 360 racing, 410 racing with the World of Outlaws, you have a dream, we can be a starting point for that. But for the majority of our racers who want to continue to race with us and not move up, that's why we are going to develop these different series. If you want to be a star in a 360 or a 410, it takes megabucks, and it's your wallet. And we have proven that that is not needed in our series, and so we want to develop that within our own series. And so that's where that our brand is going to be going, is to develop different series. And I can see that happening with different series also, like with the Northern Renegades can have that beginner series and have that all-star series, or we can make it all just one for the brand.
Yeah, there's so many different ways.
There's so many different ways to do it, and that's what we're looking into right now, and getting to what Kaylee was referring to there about your minds will be blown about what may be happening. We gave you a little teaser out there about what might be happening, and so you can take that and do what you want with it. But it's gonna like what we are used to doing. It's way outside the box for this All-Star Series, and I believe that is going to create the demand for this All-Star Series, what we're talking about doing. Okay. So, two more things that I have. We're going to develop a 5th series in 2021. We've announced that. Johnny Parsons, Mark Daniels they're going to start a series down in southern Minnesota, and it's going to cover the southern part of Minnesota and the northern part of Iowa. We're excited about that. We'll be working with them over the fall and the winter to get that going. They do have a home track. They do have 8 to 10 shows already scheduled, so we're excited for them, and we're excited to bring our brand basically to modified country, because that is what southern Minnesota is known for. And then just very briefly, and I think Kaylee will agree with this, 2021 schedules, we actually have more demand than there is supply, if we're going to be really smart about travel and all that. And so our schedules for 2021 are coming together very nicely. I think Cedar Lake Speedway just recently announced their 2021 schedule, and as you'll see out there, we're very much in demand there, and we are in demand the UMSS and other places, and I know Kaylee and I have talked about that. And the Northern Renegades, in an area that has never had sprint car racing on a consistent basis, is very high in demand too. So we're very humbled and honored by that.
Absolutely.
And that's all I have. Sean, do you want to add anything?
I don't.
Okay. Kaylee, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Matt, anything to
Nothing
finish
else.
up everything?
I'm sure I'll be in contact with you guys personally. We've got talks of a whistle tech session coming up in spring.
In the spring,
It's still in the works.
Yep, we'd like to do that before the season. We'd like to get as many of the teams whistled and
pumped and sealed
as possible. Safety checks, yes, correct. And I guess the last thing here is to thank all of you for being a part of the Renegades Racing brand. We can't do this without you. That's the bottom line. We cannot do this without you. We do this for fun. We all have families. We all have jobs. And so we do this in our spare time, including all of us. And it takes a lot of money from your end, and it takes a lot of money from our end to keep this thing going. And we're just very appreciative of your involvement.
And we take it very seriously, protecting all of you that have invested.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
thank you, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.